Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me for this extremely important conference on the topic of the future of work. And indeed, we are dealing with basically anticipating the future or dealing with very uncertain situations. So I was very glad to also hear Stein finishing up the discussion on AI and artificial intelligence and what it may actually bring about within the public sector. So megatrends are clear. So we have heard and seen a lot of graphs and different things about the upcoming kind of changes within the labor market and the job structures. But really the key question is, what are we going to do about it? So what are we in our ministries, in our public organizations, in private organizations, in our education organizations and schools are really going to take it up and do with it? So what we see in many OECD countries as well is that foresight is actually rather easy. So we can actually do many different studies on upcoming transformative changes. We had countries also predicting quite well the pandemics and the effect of COVID-19. But what the problem is that we are lacking behind in taking action. So actually taking those different trends that have been current by Stein, the World Economic Forum and others into policy strategies, regulations and partnerships that will deliver and help you anticipate those changes already in play or upcoming. So really the goal is to say, well, if this is the change pattern, then let's do or start using it in terms of the strategies and plans of work that we have in place. And why is it always so difficult to do that is that in an uncertain situation where we don't know how these megatrends will play out in your own economy, for example, in Latvia or elsewhere, and we only have evidence afterwards. So we can be very good in terms of reactive positions. Let's wait and see how artificial intelligence will play out and then we'll react to it. But of course, the issue is that after different technologies have been implemented, there is very little control or very little to do or influence when already people are using or your industry is using those applications. So we actually have to act when we have as early as possible when we have limited evidence. And how to do that as well is that it's a difficult situation because you're getting feedback from your current companies and industries that are in place in your country today. So your stakeholder needs may be actually today dominated by today's needs, even today's needs for the labor market and the jobs. So you may actually getting from your collaborative partners wrong information about what is future is going to be upcoming. And you also need to change your strategic intent of today and also go focus on the users of tomorrow or the skills and the capabilities and capacities that you need from tomorrow. So how to really go from foresight into action, how to go from the mega trends into action as well. So looking into kind of these thematic explorations, there are many different tools that organizations can actually use in the context of the future of work. So actually taking those megatrends and putting in the context of Latvia. So what is the industry structure? What are the jobs at risks? What are potentially the upcoming technological opportunities that also build new types of jobs in Latvia as well? So identifying changes, but also reacting to them or responding to change. And for that, you actually need an innovative practice that allows your organizations to do that. So you need to actually allow them to collect and use those megatrends and those informations, but also set up pilots and innovative tools and methods and policies to actually explore how do we reskill, like trialing or pilots, reskilling in a very rapid pace, different target groups within our own industries. And we're not going to get it right in just the first time, because also the situation itself is going to be evolving. So we not need a lot of experimentation actually to navigate this huge shift in its reality. So we are also doing this work in action with countries themselves. So together with LIA and the Latvian government, we are actually looking into the future of co-design the future of different technology ecosystems, and also looking at what type of skills and capacities they actually need, or will they need in the near future or in the upcoming years. Because actually building up highly educated people in newly established or emerging technology fields actually will take time. So you need to have that base already, this thinking and the scenarios placed for your industry already before you start actually making those investments. So, and how do you do that as well is that only leading by job creation or by education itself, education policies is not going to be enough. So you have to work together closely with industries and local opportunities that you will have in Latvia as well, because skills and jobs are also more movable. We are going into more distributed work and telework as well. So you may actually, if it's not connected to the new types of industries that are coming up in your country, those skills may quickly move to other countries as well. So these are the considerations that you really need a joint action and collaborative action with industry and partners outside to actually develop those skills and opportunities. And we're also looking at, from an innovative perspective, about the future of talent management and aging within the public sector itself. So in terms of automatization, what is coming up for the public sector? So how is the organization going to become, in terms of automating jobs, in terms of the effects of digitalization? So there are going to be different trends. So together with the Slovenian government, who has set this as the kind of the leading topic for their upcoming European Union presidency, we are looking at building public sector scenarios for talent management within the public sector for the future as well. So what are those factors that are contextual and then we need to address to actually build up new skills and capacities within the public sector of the future? But also organizations are going to change. So different types of skills and capacities will be needed. So the jobs or the policy analyst jobs are also going to change. So building up those scenarios, but not only stopping there, but saying which kind of pilots or experiments based on those future trends can we already implement now to try out what will work for kind of a distributed or teleworking context of a public sector, what kind of skills and capacities will be removed, or how job creation, for example, in the public sector will look like in practice. So really going from the mega trends and knowing about the statistics of upcoming changes to really experimentation and trying things out in real life. So creating the conditions to succeed within the public sector in Latvia as well will take kind of an anticipatory innovation system itself, where you actually should give agency and possibility for public sector organizations and government and your industry to explore different types of options, how to respond to the future of work needs, and also give credence and legitimacy for these activities. So from a very high level, also give value to building up those scenarios and experimentation processes that will actually allow you in an agile and adaptive way to adapt to those challenges as well. And this is all from me at the moment, so happy to respond to any questions connecting to the specific projects in our member countries.
Thank you so much. Zane, over to you.
Yes, so I'll go straight to the questions from the audience. So if we can pull up the poll, yes, the Q&A. And so the question is, for OECD in countries that were at higher risk of automation, have you seen specific actions taken either by private or public sector that have strengthened the job growth and made this a more successful transition? Then I guess this question goes to you.
Yeah, good question. I think what we know is that countries where transitions work very well have a number of policies and institutions in place that make labor markets function, or the labor market function well. We base this on decades of research of what happens in the OECD labor markets. You may be familiar with the OECD job strategy, which we have been updating about every 10 years. And it really highlights what policies and institutions are needed to make labor markets resilient and adaptable to changes. I would say a number of things. First of all, skills. We've already mentioned skills and how important skills are in terms of making sure that people have what is needed by employers in the labor market. So having training programs that target not just your traditional employee, but also more non-standard workers or even people who are in work but stuck in bad jobs and want to transition to better jobs. So training is critical. Adequate social protection is one that should not be forgotten. If people lose their job and don't have enough income to live off and to look for a new job that matches their skills, you're not going to get good matches in the labor market, and any transitions are going to be bad and inefficient, and that's not what you want. The third thing that's really important is social dialogue. I think that's something that's often underestimated, but some of the countries where we see the best kinds of transitions happening in the labor market are countries with very effective social dialogue. So countries like Austria, countries like Sweden, where when there is, say, a mass redundancy, when people know that occupations or industries are struggling, there is a tripartite dialogue between workers and between employers, but also with the government to identify these are the kind of jobs that these people can transition to, and these are this is the training that is required for taking these workers into these new jobs. And again, going back, I think this was a question in the previous presentation, is about effective training programs. I would say what makes training effective in many countries is, again, the interaction with many stakeholders and consulting many stakeholders about what is needed and how do we get there.
Thank you. And we have one more question from the audience. So if you look at the skills that are in demand in Latvia, they are very similar to, for example, Germany. What can Latvia do in order not to lose or reskill, upskill people to better paying jobs in more advanced EU economies?
Yes, this is a very good question. One challenge, of course, is that a challenge and an opportunity is that we're in a European labor market. So obviously there's going to be mobility, and some mobility is to be encouraged. I think one of the big challenges, I think, with the future of work, and that's perhaps not talked about enough, and I haven't done it in my presentation, and I probably should have, but I only had 10 minutes. People always talk about skills, and yes, I think these are very important. It's a very important policy priority for governments to get the training programs right. But I think something that governments should also focus on increasingly, especially with the kind of trends that we're seeing in the labor market, is ensuring quality jobs. The quality of many of the new jobs that are arising is often leaves something to be desired. And there are things that governments can do as well in terms of regulation, in terms of ensuring adequate pay, in terms of ensuring good working conditions. I think this is a really important area that we need to focus on in the future as we see a rise of non-standard work, if we see a rise in the platform economy, in the gig economy, as we see structural change. Because, for example, for many low-educated workers, they used to be able to get relatively high-quality jobs in the manufacturing sector, but now they have to transition to jobs in the service sector, which are not always of the same quality. But there are things that we can do about this. And I think this is where some of the emphasis should be put by policymakers.
Thank you so much. We have more and more questions coming in, but unfortunately we're running out of time. I know Piret, Latvian Investment Development Agency, is working with you on regular basis, and then we also do hope to continue our conversation on this very important question. Thank you.